Welcome to the Friday edition of In Play. Now, the full show will run automatically after this clip, or you can jump around and pick whatever clip you like. But let's get right to the big story. Political pressure is mounting for President Obama to make a decision on taking military action in Syria. One day after the British Parliament voted against military action, Obama met with the National Security Council to discuss Assad's use of chemical weapons. The president said he's considering limited, narrow action.
This kind of attack is a challenge to the world. We cannot accept a world where women and children and innocent civilians are gassed on a terrible scale. The world has an obligation to make sure that we maintain the norm against the use of chemical weapons.
Earlier, Secretary of State John Kerry also addressed the situation.
Now, we know that after a decade of conflict, the American people are tired of war. Believe me, I am too. But fatigue does not absolve us of our responsibility.
Former President George W. Bush also weighed in today, saying that President Obama has a tough choice to make. Now, joining us to talk about all of that, the complexity of the policy and the politics related to President Obama's decision, is senior White House correspondent Scott Wilson. Hey, Scott. Hi.
So, Scott, no one benefited more politically from the Iraq War than President Obama. He launched his 2008 campaign off of it. But it seems like no one is as constrained by its legacy than him as well. I mean, what's happening here?
Yeah, it's a strange dilemma to be in. He obviously distinguished himself from that field of candidates, including Hillary Clinton, most importantly, by being the clearest choice against the Iraq invasion. He said that he was not against all wars, just dumb wars, and called that one a dumb war. The simple reason he's in a bind now is chemical weapons. The legacy of selling a war in Iraq based on Saddam Hussein's development of chemical weapons, harboring and potential use of them, which he had used a decade earlier, and then having them, of course, not turn up, is something that is that confronts this administration. But that legacy of chemical weapons, who's got them, who's using them, and is it justification for war, still haunts a candidate who did so well as a result of opposing the Iraq invasion.
Now, Scott, I want to talk about opposition here. President Obama, he doesn't need a green light from Congress to authorize a strike on Syria, but you have, at least as of this morning, you have more than 200 members of Congress, 20 plus Democrats included in that, saying we need more consultation here. You have on Thursday, British Parliament going against Prime Minister David Cameron and sort of negating the idea of use of force.
Yeah.
How dangerous is it, both in the region from a policy perspective and in this country from a political perspective? We know the president can go it alone.
Right.
But how dangerous is it to take that
Right.
course?
And you know this is a president that does not like to go it alone. This is a president who, in the Libya case, went to the Arab League, went to the United Nations, went to Congress, did not receive formal approval, and got into a debate about the obligations under that law. So he wants outside help. He wants people on his side. And I think that's a real test.
Do we know what kind of timeline we're looking at for when something might happen?
You know, we don't really. I mean, it obviously it could happen at any time. You want the weapons inspectors out of the country. Obviously, that's always a prelude to these kinds of attacks. It'll happen overnight Syrian time. We fight in cover of darkness. It's our huge advantage. It'll be largely fought offshore, ships. Firing missiles and some overflights. We don't know the time. I think it's more days than weeks, but I think he has to really figure out what kind of international support he has for this and how that will dictate what exactly he wants to do militarily.
Chief Washington Post White House correspondent Scott Wilson, thank you for your expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you.